So 20 years, is it hard to believe? Does it seem long? Does it seem short? Just start generally. What's in your head when you think it's been 20 years?
It's 20 years that it's unbelievable to me. The fact that 20 years has gone by. I started it when I was 34, and now I'm 54. I mean, when you look at 34 and you think 54, I'm not going to be in the same job. Who's in the same job in television for 20 years? And it's remarkable because I thought I was going to get fired in year one. I thought it was going to be over. The news director at the time used to call and yell, scream at me on the phone and say, don't do that, don't do that. And then the ratings would come in and he'd be like, all right, well then do that. And then all of a sudden I got an extension on my contract. It was a 1-year part-time contract. I worked the weekends and then I worked Mondays for Bruce and Miles Museo behind the scenes, helping them with the forecasting. Like they need help from me. So, and then after that, they said, we're going to give you, we're gonna give you a reporting position. You're going to do feature stories. And I said, okay. And you're going to do 3 days a week on the morning show, and then you'll still work the weekends doing the weather. I said, what am I going to report on? They're like, pick 3 things you like. I said, what do you mean? They're like, you know, like the blueberry. Why don't you pick it, bake it, and wash it? And turn that into 3 parts. And I was like, is this a joke?
And here we are.
And here we are 20 years later. So it's been a remarkable ride. But it feels like it's gone like that. When I go in every day and my fob works, it's an amazing feeling to go into the building at Channel 3.
What if we could have gotten November 14th of 1998 and got that 34-year-old and said, where are you going to be in 20 years? What do you think the answer would have been then?
Definitely Al Roker. I thought I was going to go. I was just going to crush it. And not that I haven't, I mean, I've made my choices and I'm so much more comfortable with the choices that I made. But I definitely thought, oh, I'm going to go to the Today Show. You know, I'm going to have a national platform. And people still ask me to this day, how come you didn't go national? And I'm like, I'm very comfortable. I'm like, be careful what you ask for, you may get it. I'm very comfortable here in Connecticut. It's been a great life. I'm close enough to New York that I can get home to my family. Close enough, I'm far enough away from my family that they can't get to me every day. But I'm close to my mom. If I want to get home on a weekend, I can. If she needs something, I can go home. Whereas New York would have been a very different lifestyle. I'm very comfortable here in Connecticut, and I kind of love it. But yeah, 34, I was like, well, I think when I first started there, you know, Paul and I had this, he lived in Manchester, and we would go to his parents' house before I got the job at Channel 3. And I was working at News 12 in Westchester County, very small 24-hour cable network news company. And we would come up over, you know, when you're in Manchester and you drive towards Hartford, you come up over on 84 and you see the whole skyline of Hartford. And Paul would say, could you imagine getting a job in Hartford? And I'd be like, no, I can't even imagine. I'm like, could you imagine working in Market, well, I think it was 27 at that point. I'm like, Market 27? Like, I have goosebumps now thinking about it. And he just said, maybe one day you'll get a job there. And then my agent called me, because we have a part-time job open in Hartford. And I was like, you're kidding. I'm like, this is just bizarre. And then I got the job, and it started working out. And then every time Paul and I would drive from Manchester from his parents' house through Hartford back down to New York City, we would say, you know, because we were still living in New York City for the first 5 years I was at Channel 3. And Paul would always say, there it is, City of Dreams. Because it was a dream to get the job at Channel 3.
So how did you get here? Tell us about young Scot Haney and how it made who you are today. Like, how did you grow up? How did it make this guy?
I know this sounds crazy, and I tell this story all the time, but I watched the Mary Tyler Moore Show. And people are going to go, you watched the Mary Tyler Moore Show? And I'm like, yeah, I was an impressionable kid. I was like 9 or 10, and Mary Tyler Moore would come on. My parents would let me stay up and watch it. And she worked in a newsroom. And I'm like, she worked at WJM, and you know, in St. Louis. I don't know where the thing was, but they had the best time. Lou was the most amazing boss. Mary was terrific. Ted Knight was fantastic. And I'm thinking, one day I'm going to work in a newsroom. It was funny. I didn't say I was going to be the actor. I said, you know, I didn't want to be an actor like them. I wanted to work in the newsroom, in the business that they got into. And I set my sights on that when I was a little kid. And that's where I got the first formulation that I'm going to work in the news business, was from the Mary Tyler Moore Show.
What was your childhood like? You had some brothers?
Yep, 2 older brothers. One just called me 5 minutes ago. I thought something was wrong because, we talk once a month, or, we're very close. We're close. 2 older brothers. One's 5 years old, 5 years older than me. His name is Rick. Then I have my oldest brother, Jeff, who's 7 years older than me. And we grew up, mom and dad, typical Long Island middle-class family. And what's funny is when I went to college, I didn't major in journalism. I didn't even know that was really an option. In the back of my mind, I was like, I really want to do news, but I don't know how to do that. And who's going to put a middle-class kid from Comac, Long Island on TV? No one is going to do that. And I don't know.
You had a whole other career first.
I did. I had a whole other career. So I got out of college, and I went to, I was working in the supermarket, and my Pathmark, savings all over. It means a lot more savings overall. And I worked there, I told you, I worked there long enough that I now have a pension from the supermarket. 12 years I worked there, and I got a letter last year saying you're entitled to your pension. And I was like, yes, $147 a month. Not bad when I'm 62, I get that. But my friends did it like an intervention. They're like, you have to get a job after I graduated college, because I was just going to work in the supermarket. So they're like, what do you like to do? And I said, I like clothes. And they're like, well, why don't you go work in retail? So I said, all right. So I went to Saks Fifth Avenue and Macy's, and I applied for a job. And I got the job at Saks Fifth Avenue. They have an executive training program. And I got the job, and I was there 6 months, and I said, this could possibly be the worst job in my life. And I quit. And it was after 6 months, and they offered me another job in another department to stay there. And I was like, no, I have to go now. And then I said, maybe I'll try acting. And then I got a couple of small bit parts on One Life to Live, an extra in the background. And that wasn't really parlaying into the main character. So I had bills, and I had to get back to work. So I said, no, I'll go back and try retail again. So I went to work for Brooks Brothers, where I became an assistant buyer. And that's where I met Carol, who's still a dear friend to me to this day. She was my boss. And she looked at me and she said, you're wasting your time and you're wasting your life. Well, I said, what do you mean? She's like, this is not for you. She's like, you're good at what you do, but she's like, I can tell you're not happy here. She goes, what do you want to do? I said, I want to be in television news. She goes, you want to be in news? And I said, yeah. She goes, do you know anybody in news? I said, no. She goes, do you have any experience? I said, no. She goes, do you have any education in news? And I said, no. She's like, you're screwed. She's like, you got to go back to school. So that's when I applied to Syracuse. And I had done pretty well in undergrad, and I got into Syracuse, and I went for 2 years. It was a 1-year master's program, and I went for 2 years because I wanted to take more and more of the journalism classes. So I got a full graduate scholarship to go to Syracuse University, and I went, and that's when I was taking a class. When you do reporter, news director, producer, and every day you switch you're a different role in the newsroom. And that's when I started doing the weather. And my professors were like, forget the news. And I'm like, what do you mean? And they're like, you should do the weather. I'm like, I don't know anything about the weather. And they're like, you could do the weather. I'm like, I don't know anything about the weather. And they're like, no, all you need to do is talk. And yeah, I'm good at that, right? So they said, they'll give you the information. And so I started sending out my resume tape. I sent it to 2 places when I graduated, Bangor, Maine, Topeka, Kansas. And a year later, I got the job in Topeka, Kansas. He waited a full year. They hired someone in the position. It didn't work out. They fired them. They called me a year later. And I said, it's a year later. You still have my resume tape? He's like, yeah, I really like you. Because I wasn't willing to take a chance on you a year ago. But now I am. I go, what made you keep my resume? He goes, the top 10 list, because it was Letterman's top 10 list was very popular at that point, and I did a top 10 list of reasons why they should hire me, and he loved that. He kept it on his blotter every day. So he called me, and I got the job, and I went to Topeka, Kansas, to my first job.
How long did you work there?
3 months. Yes, and then I quit.
Why?
I missed Paul. I had just met Paul. I was 24. I remember looking up at the sign. It was really the first time I had ever gone away, like, other than Syracuse, but I was still in New York and Syracuse. Now I'm in Kansas. And I looked up at the sign, it said 72 miles to Kansas City, east. And I'm like, what am I doing west of Kansas City? I don't know anything. I don't know anyone. And I was really like depressed and homesick. And they ended up hiring a chief meteorologist who the day that I got there, they fired the guy that I was supposed to work with. They ended up hiring someone that I did not get along with. And I just said, this isn't working out. So my mother came out. We moved back to Comac, Long Island, started at that supermarket again. And then I got a temp job in New York City. And they offered me the full-time job. So I became the secretary to the executive vice president of human resources for Gray Advertising. And then he said, you're good at this. You want the job? And I said, how much does it pay? And he said, $37,000. And this was back in 1994. And I said, $37,000? I'll take it. So I did, and I stayed there, and I got promoted, and I stayed there for 2 or 3 years. And then I went to work for another, as an operations manager for a stock photography company. It was kind of like human resources. And I was miserable. My dream of being on television was slipping away. And I wasn't really pursuing it because I was like, who's going to hire me after having a 3-month-old, a 3-year-old resume tape that's 3 months of worth of, you quit after 3 months? Like, no one's hiring me. And then I got a call from somebody I went to Syracuse with, and she said, they're looking for a weekend part-time weather guy at News 12. And nobody wants the job because it pays like $9 an hour. I said, I'll take the job. So she said, come in and interview, but don't tell anybody that you know me because they hate me here. I said, oh, okay. So my only reference is someone that they hate. So I went in and I got the job. And then I moved to, they moved me to Westchester. And then they said, what do you know about the weather? I said, ooh, I don't know too much about the weather. And they said, you got to go back to school. So I was part-time, no, I was full-time at News 12. And then I would go and take meteorology courses at night. And it took me 5 years part-time. And I had gotten the job at Channel 3, and I finished my meteorology at Channel 3.
When you were first on the air at Channel 3, were you the Scot Haney we know today?
Yeah, and that got me in a lot of trouble because I don't think they were ready for it. The beginning of my career was the day that the Yukon women won. And it was one of the first times that they had won, so it was really a big deal. And they were having a parade for them, and everybody was, we were in 4-hour coverage. Al Terzi was anchoring, Denise, everybody was brought in. It was a Sunday, and it snowed. And it was April. It was like the second week in April, and it snowed. It didn't snow a lot, but it was so cold and so windy and so snowy that. You want to wait for that to stop?
No.
All right. So it was so cold and it was so snowy that nobody came to the parade. But they were at home. They were like, get out there and do interviews. I'm like, there is no one here to interview. So I turned it into the Scot Haney Show. And we had a 40 share, which was, or I think it was like a 44 share. And people were writing in saying, who is this guy? Who is this guy? Who is this guy? And then people started following me. And so when as long as the numbers went up, because when I started at Channel 3, the morning show was not where it is, not like it is today. They weren't doing very well. And they, as long as the numbers kept going up, they let me do what I wanted to do. I got yelled at. As I told you once, there was Polly Bell and Kerry Connolly, and I came out and they were wearing, it was New Year's Day, and they were wearing slippers behind the anchor desk, and I did a slipper forecast. And the news director called me and screamed and hung up, and I was like, I think I had been there 2 weeks, and I said, I'm going to get fired. I'm going to get fired. And I haven't been here 2 weeks. But the numbers came in, and they kept going up, and he started liking me more, and then 20 years went by.
So the ratings are improving as you're doing it and you're goofing around and you're being yourself. But was there a moment when you thought, this is going to work?
2002. Miles got fired, or they didn't renew his contract. Bruce became the chief meteorologist, and they came to me and they said, we want you to do the weather Monday through Friday. And I said, Monday through Friday? Like, I'm not going to have to work weekends anymore? And they're like, no more weekends. You'll do the weather Monday through Friday, and we're going to give you a raise. And I was like, this is working. It must have been 2002 or 2003. And I got to do the weather Monday through Friday full time. And then they still had me do feature reporting, though. Weather was still the main gig, but after I was done with the weather in the morning, they were like, now you got to go out and report. And I was like, okay, I'll go out and do that. No, I never did hard news, except once when I was on a feature story and someone drove through the bingo hall. And they were like, you're closest, get to the bingo hall. And I was like, I don't know what to do. So, but I went and I covered it, and then another reporter came in and took over for me. But, you know, I know how to do it, but it was just strange. I'm doing a feature, every town has a story, and somebody drove through the bingo hall.
Have you thought about why it works? I mean, this is it's the land of steady habits. This is a bunch of people who like things to not change, and you're a big change. Why does it work?
I think the majority of people wake up in the morning and go, like, I don't know, you know, like, just it's mornings are never fun. I mean, you know, you got to get out of bed. You're coming out of a peaceful sleep. Some people go to jobs they don't like. You know, everybody has problems, and I think they like to turn the television set on and get a smile. They're going to get the forecast regardless. They can go anywhere for that. But if they tune into Channel 3, they're going to get a chuckle, and they're going to get a smile. And I think people get put into a good mood. And that's not just me, it's the team that I work with. You can only play tennis if the partner is hitting the ball back to you. But I think we provide a sense of, we give them the news. Of course, we're there for them during trouble. We're there for them during times of crisis. But the majority of time, we're not in crisis mode. We're just going along. And I think we give them a little levity. And people like to laugh, and they like to feel like they're a part of a family. And I think that Channel 3 provides that family. There's no other station in this market where you're going to look at the anchors and go, they're my family. I have people write into me and going, you know, where's Eric? Is he on vacation? You know, when a family member is missing, they notice it. They know it. And they don't like that. They just had to get a little used to me being a member of the family. And then once they accepted me, then it was good.
I think the biggest thing that I see as a misconception of you is that you only goof around. And the thing that I always have to tell people is, when there's weather,
oh God,
you're deadly serious. You yell at me more often to stop screwing around.
No, I am literally I will sit. Last night, I woke up. It was raining. I was like, are we going to have tornadoes? Maybe I should wake up. Oh, no, I'm not working tomorrow. No, maybe I should get up. I worry about the weather constantly. And when there's stuff on, especially this year, 2018, we've had 9 tornadoes so far. I don't know what the count is we're up to, but it's been like one of the worst seasons ever. And now every time I look at that radar, I start like twitching. I'm like, but people are going to get hurt? Are they going to listen? Am I going to get the notice out enough? Am I going to do the right job? Am I going to do the right thing? Am I going to say the right things on the air? Am I going to warn people enough? It's a nerve-wracking job.
How do you balance that, though? How do you balance that you want to have people wake up and smile and laugh, but sometimes you got to be the serious weatherman?
You just do it. When it's serious weather days, you just do serious weather days, and there's no laughs. And people write in and go, are you upset today? And I'm like, no. Like, even people in the newsroom. The other day I was walking by and they're like, are you okay? And I'm like, yeah, we had tornadoes today. I'm like, it just makes me feel, because the weather can be so destructive. It changes people's lives. It changes their landscape. I mean, people along the shoreline are still rebuilding from Sandy. I mean, I had to talk about that storm coming in. And when you realize that weather change, not that I can change the weather, but you hope that they listen to the information, and you have to ride that line of credible, and you always want to make sure you're credible. So you joke around when the weather's good, but when it's serious, you got to do your job.
I was trying to think of people in Connecticut who are better known than you. A couple of basketball coaches, maybe some governors.
That's very nice of you.
And that's it, right? I can't think of any more. But with that comes that everybody knows you.
Everybody knows me.
In the time you've been in Connecticut, you've essentially come out on TV. You broke up with a partner of almost 2 decades. You moved your life from Canton to Hartford. You experienced all these things in public.
Yeah.
What was that like for you?
The breakup was hard. I remember fighting, Paul saying, we don't spend enough time with our friends. You're always doing public appearances. And he was right. But I still do that. I feel that part of the job is giving back to the community. And I sacrificed my personal life for my job. I'm sad about that. There were other reasons too why Paul and I, it didn't work out. But a portion of it was work. He would always say, "We have another public appearance this weekend," and it had to have been so difficult for we always joke there's a line in a chorus line where it's photographs of me in the background, and it's a line from one of the songs. How funny I'm making a gay reference from a Broadway show. That's funny. And it's true, like you go out and people are like, "Oh my God, Scot Haney, I love you," or "Can I take a picture with you?" And Paul's more times than not taking the photo. It's got to chip away at your self-confidence. Not your self-confidence, but everybody wants to be built up, and it was tough. It was tough. So yeah, that's something I regret. I'm trying to think if Paul and I if I weren't in television, would Paul and I still be together? Probably. But I wouldn't change it though. I wouldn't change it because I'm pretty happy. And I always wanted to know what it was like to live on my own, because Paul was the first person I had ever met, and I moved out of my mother's house and in with Paul. And I said, and in the back of my mind, it was always like, "Can you make it on your own? Can you make it on your own? Can you do this on your own?" And I did. And I'm alone now. There's no one significant in my life, and I'm proud of where I came from and the fact that I can do this. Like I went through, it's like you said, selling a house, finances, and I didn't pay the bills. Now I pay the bills, and I eating every night. Paul took care of the food. I came home, there was dinner on the table. I remember my mother, she took me down the frozen food aisle after Paul and I split. I said, "How am I going to eat?" And she said, "You're going to come down the frozen food aisle," and she's like, "You're going to buy frozen food and cook it." I said, "Oh, okay." I was like, "Where's the nearest cafeteria? Where's the meal plan?" She's like, "There's no meal plan in life." I go, "But it was Paul." So she's like, "He's gone now, and you have to do it on your own."
How about telling the audience that you're gay? How did that happen?
The Hartford Current, I just assumed everybody thought I was gay. I don't know. Some people wrote in, women would write in and say, "I would like to date you." And I'm like, is gay not tattooed on my head? And I never hid it. I never talked about it on the air for the first 3 or 4 years, but I never hid it. I would hint at it. And then the Hartford Current came, and they said they wanted to do an article on my house in Canton. And that was 2005, I think 2005. And I remember going and saying to the bosses, I said, "They're gonna come do an article on my house." And they're like, "Okay, that's fine." I'm like, and Paul lives there with me. And they're like, "That's fine." And I said, "Well, I'm gonna be out now that they're gonna do this article." And they went ahead and did the article, and that was the first time that it was public knowledge that I was with a male partner, that I was gay and that I was not straight. And ever since then, it's been there's been no looking back, and I'm happy with the decision, and I wouldn't live any other way.
Paul's not the only breakup you've had. You've gone through a lot of traffic reporters. What do you do to them, and why haven't you done it to Nicole yet?
I don't know why Nicole stays. Yeah, there have been a lot of traffic reports, and some I keep saying their names on the air recently. What happens is, Channel 3, when you come to Channel 3, you're not making $1 million. You're making, you know, I'm not making $1 million now, but it's the medium ground for a lot of people, and that's the way it was with traffic. And all of the traffic reporters prior to Nicole, they all got offered amazing opportunities to go elsewhere and make significant more amounts of money. So how could they say no? So everybody thinks I did something to them. I'm like, no, I helped them. I helped them with their career. I made them funny and likable. And then they went off and left me. And people are like, you did it again. You got rid of another traffic reporter. I'm like, no, no, no. They were green when they started, and now they're experienced and wonderful, and they went on to make 4 times more money. Unless it's in Boston. And we're still, and to my credit, I'm still friendly with all of the traffic reporters. I don't see them on a daily basis, but you know, I'm probably closest with Alessa, just because we really clicked. And Nicole, I don't know why she stays with me. I think she knows, you know, I think we all know we have it pretty good. She's a Scot Haney when I started. She's saying, if I stick this out long enough, it's going to work out for me. I don't think she needs to go anywhere else. Whereas the others had sights of grandeur, and they didn't leave Connecticut, 2 of them, but yeah, I didn't push them out. I did not push them out. They left on their own.
We talk about this sometimes, that this is a crazy way to make a living.
It's crazy.
In 20 years at Channel 3, what's been your biggest thrill in this business?
My biggest thrill. Every time my contract gets renewed, it's a thrill. It honestly is. Because I'm the type of person that thinks of, I have no self-confidence in the fact that I'm going to be there the next day. Every day I look at it and go, this could be the last day. And it's been like that for 20 years. I don't know, maybe that's what keeps me on my toes. But every time I get a contract, I'm like, I'm safe. You know, I could say something stupid and screw it all up. But those have been some pretty remarkable achievements. And work-related achievements. I was proud to be at 9/11. I was not that that's an achievement, but I was glad where I was when that happened, so that I could bring news to the Connecticut viewers, because I was in New York City that day, and it was not a good day. And Deb Johnson, the news director, said, "Can you get down there?" And I said, "Yeah." And I put my rollerblades on, and I rollerbladed 80 blocks, 60 blocks down 2nd Avenue to the command post, and CBS out of New York helped me get on the air. So that was a big accomplishment for me, to figure out A, how to get down there, B, get on the air for the viewers of Connecticut. In terms of happy moments, my 50th birthday party was a pretty happy moment, where we all celebrated together, and it ended up being a fundraiser for the Channel 3 Kids Camp, which is good. My work with the camp has been very good. My work with nonprofits has been pretty good too. But like, one thing that stands out, no, it's just been a steady course of good things happening.
Any person you've met because of this job?
You, my morning team, Irene. Personally, yeah, all of my friends are from this job. Richard Schlesinger is one of my close friends. I met him on Every Town Has a Story. Viewers have become close friends. I'm trying to think of someone who's in my life, other than my friends from high school, who I'm still very close with, Susan and Sharon. My friend Marty passed this past year. That was tough. But other than my friends from high school, everyone I know is through Channel 3. Everyone. You know, I'm thinking about all the people that I've known. I've met through work. John Holt from Nutmeg. You know, I met him on the set. Mark, I met him in the weather department. Jim, I'm thinking today, Jim Bozzi, met, from Live Nation, met him through work. Everybody I know, people I hang out with and socialize with is through Channel 3.
How about that? You mentioned the viewers. You have more than just a TV relationship with a lot of viewers. You've been to funerals and weddings and shared, as much as you're part of their family, they've kind of become part of yours in a way.
Yeah, it's when you get a note from when you get notes from the viewers and they're going through a difficult time, Dasha, come here. Come over here. It's my cat. You probably can hear him. Come over here. Yeah, there's a good cat. There's a good cat right there. When you know that you've touched an individual so much and you don't show up, that's tough. It's really tough. So you go. And I'm always surprised that, they think I'm a part of their family, which I think is just really remarkable. And there's no difference between on air and off air, as you know. I'm the same on air as I am off air. So they're very happy that I am, who I am. And I think that you just go. When people need you, you go. And when they call you, you go.
You have a regret in 20 years?
Yeah, Paul. That's probably the biggest regret, is that I did not spend enough time on my relationship as I did. I spent more time on work than I did on my relationship. But I kept looking at everything I was getting. I kept looking at Paul. He's like, we have another public appearance tonight. And I'm like, I know, but look at the house we're living in. This house was built on me working and going into the public and meeting people and working hard. And then, it was kind of like, well, I'd rather, his view was, I'd rather live in a 2-bedroom apartment and have more time with you than have all of this. So that is a regret, my relationship with Paul.
You ate cat vomit on television.
I did eat cat vomit on television. I got an email, I got a text message from my nephew today that said, Uncle Scott, I'm watching the cat vomit video, laughing out loud. And it's been, what was that? I don't know, 7, 8 years ago? 6, 7, 8 years ago? Yeah, that was a fun day, but it was a disgusting day.
I mean, someday, hopefully many, many years from now, when you go, that's going to be in your obit piece.
Oh, it's going to be on my tombstone. This man ate cat puke on TV, and it went worldwide. It went around the world.
I appreciated that I was featured in newspapers in Britain.
Yes, it was.
With the cat vomit guy.
It was Alessa, you, Irene, and me with the cat vomit guy. I made it to England. I made it to Australia. I made it to Hong Kong. We made it everywhere from eating cat puke on the air. And people think, oh, that was a stunt. That was a rating stunt. You have to absolutely 100% believe me say, when I did not know that I was eating cat puke, it was cat puke. It was disgusting, and I thought it was grape nut cereal, and it wasn't. And it was warm, and it was rubbery, and it was soft and moist. And I chewed it, and I swallowed it, and then I realized my cat had thrown up. I stepped in it, and it fell off my shoe, and I thought it was grape nuts on the ground, and I just picked it up to eat it for shock value. So the shock value was like, oh, I'm gonna pick something up off the floor, because I do that all the time. If something's on the floor and it's food, I'm gonna eat it. So I did. I picked that up, and I thought it was the grape nuts that I was eating that morning, and it wasn't. It was cat puke. It's something I will never live down, but it's okay. Like, people will say, like, I'll go up to somebody and say, you know me, I was the guy with the cat puke. And they're like, oh, yeah. Yeah, the guy with the cat puke. Thank you. I'm very proud of that moment, too.
You did, I'm almost done. I know you've given us a lot of your time.
No.
You've done some forecasts on Letterman.
I did. That was because of the Stangl brothers. When I was at Syracuse, I was a TA, a graduate assistant. And one of my class, I would teach a class on broadcast news writing, and it was an introductory class, and Eric Stengel was one of the students in the class. And he was, yeah, I didn't know Eric Stengel from any other kid in the room, and he was one of the smartest kids and funniest kids in that classroom, and we forged a friendship. And we kept in touch through the years, and he and his brother Justin became Letterman's head writers. So whenever they needed a wacky weather guy, they'd pick up the phone and say, Scot Haney, you want to go on Letterman tonight? And I'd be like, yes. So I got to be on Letterman like 3 or 4 times, and it was a pretty remarkable experience. Dave has no idea who I am. You know, I didn't meet him that night. It was what the audience saw on television was basically what I was experiencing. I was a member of the audience, and he'd call me up and call me out, but he didn't know who Scot Haney was. You know, I never got to know Dave Letterman, but it was fun being on the show because people think, oh, you know Dave Letterman, and I got paid. I got paid to be on the show, which was fantastic. I like money. I do like money. That's a downfall.
All right, so been here 20 years, you're 54 years old. What's next?
10 more years, baby. Just give me 10. No, I'm hoping to ride it out. I hope the ride continues. I have a great team. I love what I do. It's like you said, we go in and this is work. This is not work. This is, I mean, I'm there 12, sometimes 14 hours a day. But, you know, Kara said something very interesting the other day. She said, I'd rather be behind the 8 ball than watching the clock all day, or something like that. You know, I'd rather be like, oh my God, I don't have enough time, than sitting there watching the clock. I have never spent a day where I'm like, is it 12 o'clock yet? I'm always like, oh my God, it's 12 o'clock. I got to get out of here. But I have 2 more hours. I was at work today. I went to work. I had to, you know, do a little tidying up. But I'm a workaholic, and I hope to continue to work at Channel 3 for many, many years to come.
All right, so let's go back to November 14th, 1998. What would you tell that kid who was showing up for his first day at work at Channel 3? If you could give your 34-year-old self a couple of sentences, what would you want him to know?
Don't drink at public appearances, ever. Listen, but never lose your sense of creativity and never lose your sense of humor. Keep that. You've had that your whole life, and keep that going. Just be creative and have a good time and enjoy the ride, because it goes fast. It goes really, really fast.
And if that kid thought you were going to be on the Today Show by now, are you glad he's wrong?
Yeah. Part of me still wants, I mean, I think it's in human nature that we want to keep evolving. So if CBS, if the network came and knocked on my door, I'd entertain the idea, but it would be a very difficult decision to leave Channel 3. Because, you know, it's like you said, you go out to dinner, people know who you are. We were out to dinner the other night, and a very nice woman came over and said hello. The fork was in my mouth, and I'm like, you know, and I love that. But I get to leave Connecticut. I go to New York, I go to Maine, I go to New Jersey. Nobody knows who Scot Haney is, and that's nice. You get on a national show, and everybody knows who Scot Haney is in every state. Then you gotta really, you gotta be careful what you ask for. You may get it. So I'm pretty happy at Channel 3.
Anything I didn't ask you about that you want to tell the people? Any message for the viewers?
I love them. They have made my career. You know, people always say, oh, you must get bad emails. And I'm like, no, I don't get bad emails. You know, every now and then I'll get a nutty email from a distraught viewer. But for the most part, I'm connected with a product where I can be a personality. I'm not you. I don't have to do the news and deliver really bad, you know, I do the weather, And while that's serious, at the same time, it gives me an opportunity to show a little bit of a personality. And I would just like to say to the viewer, that if it weren't for the viewers, I would be nowhere. And I would just like to say thank you to the viewers. It's because they made my career.
Good?
Good. Sit there, get some cutaways. Do you remember what you said when we went to the car that went through the bingo hall?
Yes, I said, I did, yes. I said, it's too bad this wasn't a drive-through. Something like that, right?
Something like that, and the firefighters chuckled. That was before we found out.
The woman was dead. Yeah, it was a fatal. And I said, wow. I said, that woman must have thought this was a drive-through. And the people were horrified. And they were like, she's dead. And I'm like, oh. D. Griffin came.
We didn't know.
We didn't know.
We didn't know.
We didn't know. I thought it was just a regular drive-through, you know. She barreled through.